70% revenue in all of gaming, with over 2 billion mobile gamers around the world by 2023. These are not numbers that can be ignored, and by this point, it is widely known that a big majority of the market are famously or infamously known as Gacha Games, a genre of mobile games usually free that originated from Japan back in the 2010s. Back when no one expected the growth of popularity it has now. Their names derive from Gachapon, which are Japanese slot machines, and what they are known for is a controversial monetization mechanic in the form of a slot machine as a way to get in-game items from.
You cannot, no matter how much you spend, you cannot directly get the card you want. You have to over and over again pay to get a bunch of random cards and hope that the thing you wanted is in there. Or then you like trade them somehow if there's what wasn't what you hoped for. These are great for again both monetization and retention because people like the lottery part of it.
Our question today, that is asked by absolutely no one, is what it's like from the inside. And no, this is not someone from the outside of the industry trying to ingratiate themselves with a community they have always been skeptical of in hopes of bringing some greater understanding of it. My goal of this entire video is to document my own journey as someone who has been in the industry for a decade, who has seen the good, the bad, and the downright deplorable the gacha game industry has to offer, and hopefully I can make it entertaining along the way. One thing I cannot promise, however, is how general of a viewpoint my video can be, as my experiences are ultimately unique to me alone. The best I can do is to evaluate those experiences objectively with newfound hindsight from after a decade. But without further ado, let's go to the very beginning. We all started somewhere as #gamers. Maybe you have a friend who was carrying around this cool device in the playground. Maybe your parents are kind enough to buy you a Game Boy or an iPad for Christmas, so you stop bothering them to varying degrees of your impending developmental problems. Now here is where the cultural divide really happens, depending on where you are on the planet. Where I'm from, Asian parents unanimously came to a single realization that there is no need to buy new games. Cause here in the Gen Z era, you can get free games anytime you want on your smartphones. Sure, you can bargain with your parents to get you the latest console at the time, only to be shut down immediately, while you go back to continue living vicariously through your favorite YouTube aggregators. From this point on, you have a few options. Browsing the web in search of shitty flash games,
and 10 Bakugan fight,
terribly made MMOs, or online games.
This Malphite would just run down everybody's lane and feed kills until he was 0 and 9. And it was at this time that I called this Malphite a fucking worthless, brain-dead scum.
How about no? But what if I told you there is actually a wildcard option? Through some twist of fate, maybe a friend recommended you, or you saw a cute anime girl on the App Store. Without even realizing it, you have now been dragged into a rabbit hole. You are thrown into this world of vibrant colors. The gameplay reminds you of the Game Boy from your childhood. Now this ain't no Bloodborne or GTA 5, but what we have here is a completely filling experience that you can sink your teeth into that doesn't just finish in a few hours. Finally, a place where you can settle down, especially since the game is constantly being updated. It's a game that you can seemingly play forever without ever completing. You also start to notice there are things to incentivize you to play slowly, like daily logins, your energy to play that recharges over time. You're legitimately excited for the next day as it means daily loot and you get to continue playing. All of this from a free game. After playing for a while, however, you'll start to notice one thing. Why do other players have characters that you don't? They sure as hell aren't dropping from gameplay. So where do you get Oh, so you spend the rare currency here, and you randomly get someone from a pool of 100 playable characters? That actually sounds fun. Looking back now at my younger self, before I became this miserable, jaded little twat, I'm just as surprised as how my younger self looked at it so innocently in self-reflection. Back to past me, there's a magical allure to not knowing what you will get in a game you just started. A random whole new character with a complete different abilities will always be an exciting prospect. This motivates you to keep playing, to continue gathering said rare pooling currency. Admittedly, looking back on Brave Frontier specifically from 10 years ago, they're quite stingy with the pooling currencies. Although there's more of an industry standard than just this game's specific issues at the time. But at this point, everything still feels fresh and exciting to you. The eagerness to log in and play more remains. Eventually though, things start to slow down. You feel like you're progressing in a much slower pace. You don't level up as much either, so you sure aren't getting free stamina refills from leveling up as much to keep playing. And then an interesting thought come across you. What if I use my rare currency to refresh my stamina? The same currency used to get cool new characters. In fact, it's kinda slow just getting them through the main story.
Now get out of here.
Versus the rate in which new characters go on rate up. So where do you get them? Looking back again, while you might not be as skeptical of this as a child, it's hard to deny that this can be manipulated in ways to force money out of the players.
Then you build it into a habit that you play multiple sessions every day. The habit is like the main meat of the game. This is where you sell the faster progress.
So at this stage in time, when you're playing the game, it's essentially a rite of passage every player of a new gacha game will have to go through. Will you persevere and become stronger? Were you ever told no as a child? As naive, snot-nosed kids, we like to believe everything will go our way. When I asked my parents if I can buy some gems on a free game, it was met with a resounding no. The idea of paying for digital currency will sound so alien that most reasonable parents will immediately shut down that request. Of course, as ultimately fleeting creatures who are driven only by self-satisfaction, we will usually rebel instantly against any form of friction. So what are your options? Use your pocket money?
I have no idea how much it is. Come on, like a scratch lottery guy. Make a game of it, take it to the bank. See how much it's worth. Maybe it's 50 cents, but maybe it's $1 million.
It ain't $1 million.
Good luck in this economy. Even if you do payment through online, it's a whole other ordeal. Bottom line, there is no way to buy said currency without your parents knowing. Now here's where the cultural issue applies again. Maybe some parents in other countries are more reasonable and buy you some V-Bucks from time to time, and a kid eventually learns how to do it behind their backs. If I ever tried doing that, I'll get murdered. Looking back now, this might be the most important thing that can happen to someone when they play a gacha game. So now you're stuck. You're not getting characters as much as you used to. You finish your stamina within an hour or two every day, but you still want to experience more of this game. But you are ultimately gated out of it. But then you came up with a brilliant idea. They say we were born too early to voyage across the infinite sea of stars. Born too late to explore and discover the new world along with Columbus. But we are, however, born at the right time to learn about everything there is to be known that can be known. Indeed, if the information exists, someone will be willing to upload them onto the internet. You figure it was going to be a while before you see all the characters in whatever gacha game you are playing, so why not just look them up online? In doing so, you can see all their cool upgraded forms, which only makes you even more excited to keep playing afterwards. The possibilities are endless through the internet. As all your real life friends gravitate towards death and disease, you started looking elsewhere to talk about the game during downtimes. This was the early 2010s, and Facebook is the most prominent social media out there. Now, depending on how often you use social media, joining a group dedicated to a niche free video game on a niche platform expecting you to fit right in is not exactly easy. What you need right now is a good first impression, something that will elicit a response, something that will stay with people. What are some of the best first impressions known to history? What genius can provide the best solution? Where does all knowledge come from? Does the Greeks know? No, they don't. In fact, it was through the lack of knowledge that they seek out the answers. I understand what needs to be done. That actually went well. This overused phrase wasn't so overused at the time. Niche communities are always welcoming new players as the industry is growing slowly. They took you under their wing, teach you how to survive, and even predict the future. Although these terms are commonplace nowadays, learning about them during the early era of the gacha industry holds a lot more weight. It warms the heart to know there are many others struggling like yourself, and we can suffer in each other's company while waiting for our stamina bar to reach in. Eventually, most of our time spent on the game are actually outside of it, where you top up the most effective team available, pooling plans.
20. I can count good too, Schnitzel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9. Oh, fiddlesticks.
And planning for future content. You learn that Gacha Games also have some form of innate resource management. If you pull now, will this new character benefit you immediately? Are your chances even realistic? Will it jeopardize your future for another character? Decisions you have to make based on your own current situation of your account. That in itself is another charm of gacha games, where there is no two accounts that are completely the same, at least for majority of the players who rarely spend.
You absolutely do not want to tell them that the majority of people in your game never spend money. That's poison. Never tell them that.
Your time with gacha games generally improves with spending it with its niche communities. With all that said, time continues to march. The time you enjoy with this community will inevitably change, which brings us to the next stage of this gacha life cycle. It's a common saying that nothing good lasts forever, and trying to prolong it will only lead to more suffering. Instead, we should celebrate the good times that was spent and look forward to what the future holds. But something Dark Souls. This isn't any different with gacha games. Eventually, devs run out of ideas to keep the game fresh. New units release started being derivative, and the general flaws of the game start to be increasingly apparent. On the other hand, over at the community side, people eventually drift away from each other as soon as the game is noticeably going downhill. Real life priorities start piling up as they grow older, and you might even grow to dislike the game yourself. Trying as desperately as you can to keep a sinking ship floating, clawing away at everything to keep your passion, eventually your motors will slow down, alongside any motivation to continue, leaving behind only a husk of what you used to be. One day, you must reach an ultimatum. Do you learn absolutely nothing from this experience and try to chase the same high again somewhere else? Or do you come to terms with abandoning this childish wish and so surrendering yourself to becoming a cog in this sociopathic mode of society? Well, I wouldn't be making this video if it was something anticlimactic like the latter. From there on, the wider world with thousands of possibilities opening up to you with endless types of gachas to try. Some are okay, some are bad. Okay, most of them are bad. Some downright feels like a sin to play.
Ah! Shit! Fuck me!
The gameplay are often an afterthought, and you are only playing this in hopes of getting a PNG of your favorite anime girl. You come to realize how lucky you are with your first gacha game experience. Or is the industry now evolving into something you don't seem to grasp at the time? Desperate in finding something worthwhile, I turned to the most popular option in the market, and yeah, they are significantly better than the random gacha games you find on the Play Store. Although something does feel different now that you are accustomed to these game designs, learning about new units, while can still be exciting, feels like homework you need to do sooner or later. You start to only value getting higher rarities. Although the community are still niche and generally welcoming, there has been a tone shift towards optimization. As long as you interact with the community, you will inevitably be drawn into the conversation of progressing your account in the most efficient way. Some of it I will have attribute to the exchange of information being faster by this point in time. Back then in very frontier, I was using Facebook, where now in Discord it's a live chat board where conversations are instantaneous. And so the hunt is on, the journey to be a best, to find a loved one whilst meeting allies, to save the world, and oh geez, most of these are about saving the world. I guess it's hard to justify a combat focused story with a large cast without some reason to worry about surviving. In the same way, a bird doesn't learn to fly if they are well fed daily, provided nice shelter, and was given the best form of entertainment on the MSI GeForce RTX 4090 Gaming X324GB GDDR6X. You bet learning to fly isn't on the memo. In the same way, fighting will be seen as unproductive or at worst techy. Where was I? All these games seem to have a better sense of direction and a more active community to keep them alive. Seemingly, this was what I was looking for, more gacha games that hopefully will last much longer. The pool and currency distribution are more generous than I anticipated too, and so I went to work once again, lay out the spreadsheets, discuss banner plans with your gambling enthusiasts, clear content so you can catch up with everyone else. In fact, why not do it on multiple gachas to multiply this exciting engagement? Log in daily, clear new events and stories, progress account, shared with your peers. Log in daily, clear new events and stories, progress account, shared with your peers. Log in daily, clear new events and stories, progress account, shared with your peers. Log in daily, clear new events and stories, progress account. There is a famous saying in game design that when given the tools, players will optimize the fun out of their games. In another sense, looking at MMOs for a bit, there is not enough content. There will never be enough. Both of these aspects apply to gacha games as well, as there is an innate limited resource built into the design of these games. So there is a deep-seated fear of stunning the progression of your account if you try to do something that isn't completely efficient or try to go off the beaten path.
In games, you can apply this by giving people stuff that feels is in their pocket and then threaten to take it away unless they pay up. This is, lots of level-based games do this. There are collectibles in things like Puzzle and Dragons. You collect along the way. If you didn't finish the level, they'll take it from you. Now, pay to continue a bit.
Or at least, that mindset is driven into you as you play gacha games with communities. As for new content, there's a competitive factor to finishing content faster or as fast as everyone else to get into discussions about it. All of that taken to the extreme, and you can imagine the toll it will take on a person after repeating it for seemingly all foreseeable future. More lost and confused than ever, I have completely lost my sense in what I actually want. What started out as a venture to find the same high as playing a gacha game with the community quickly turned into a full-time job. Self-reflection began circling in my head. What is farming? What is community? What is progression? But most importantly, what is gacha gaming? What is gaming in the first place? Why do we game? Why do we even exist? Is it a deep-seated issue that I had a over-reliance on video games? as a way to distract me from more pressing issues in my life? Don't worry about it. Luckily, without realizing, time and circumstances around me have changed. While I spend time playing gacha games, opportunities I never had open up years later. A while back, I said nothing lasts forever, in that you can't possibly sustain your enjoyment of something forever. In another sense, what if I tell you that time is all you need for some problems to fix themselves? They say when you grow up, your options start to open up. Maybe it's when you start to consider college and your parents begrudgingly buys you a half-decent computer for your studies. Son, you wouldn't use them for anything else, would you? Things will be different now. I promised myself that gacha games have always been a substitute for games I could have never played many years ago, and that haven't changed at all. I always had that nagging feeling at the back of my head that these games were deliberately dumbed down and restricted in order to work on the phone, and will never be as good as traditional video games. And now I can prove to myself once and for all that gacha games are evil. So I went to work, picked out classics that were highly respected even in modern days, games I know I will like. And, suffice to say, they were great games that spared no effort in quality, while some really showed their age. It oozes an air of wanting to give you the fun you already paid money for, instead of trying to nickel and dime you while you are playing. Some design choices in gacha game really shows once you tried some traditional games. Upgrades aren't arbitrarily drip-fed to you through stretches of content. Main stories usually go straight to the point instead of unnecessary filler. The games don't hold back as much when it comes to difficult content. You really have to try playing them blind, or if you're a dyslexic like me. But more than anything, they don't try to direct you around with the fear of missing out tactics that I found in gacha games at the time. Play this event to get a limited unit, do this farming quest while it has double drop. Your stamina is precious, and you wouldn't want to waste it on stuff like the main story, even if they are more fun to do now. All kinds of design choices that are made to keep player retention high, because the longer they stay, the more chances they pay, and that is an undeniable fact. So we have our verdict then. Traditional video games good, gacha bad. This is supposed to be a part where I put this inferior mobile games behind me as but a stage of my growth to become a next level gamer.
From the moment I understood the weakness of
gacha games,
it disgusted me.
With all these facts laid bare, how can I possibly defend gacha games now? Well, that is what I thought originally when I saw all these kinds of game designs. But then, a realization dawned on me. I don't feel the drive to play more of these traditional games. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing but praises for their gameplay designs, but playing these games, I realize I don't try to experiment with playstyles much. I usually avoid optional stuff and gun straight for the main story. I don't really redo missions to see if I could do better. In games with tons of post-game content like Neo, I just ticked off my completed game list after completing the main story. Because at the end of the day, after completing all these games, which I have nothing but good memories from, there is no one I can talk about it with. Laugh at me all you want. Video games have always been an escape, and we should have never expected more from it. But something along those lines changed. Video games have become my life. Gacha have become my life. I wish I can tiptoe around the issue, but maybe this is what it's like when people say they can't play anything other than MMOs anymore. Now I know this is all doom and gloom, but all my completely personal situation doesn't change what I said about gacha games, that they aren't made with gameplay in mind first and foremost, long and overly drawn out for player retention, filled with fear of missing out tactics to prey on its players. So why would I go back and play such things? Because once again, things have changed. Unbeknownst to anyone, a new age of gacha games are about to begin. Gacha games that care about gameplay, games that care about the player experience, and games that are good in spite of their predatory monetization. These are games that can keep you entertained for hours on end even after your stamina is depleted, as they have tons of side content that can be played for completely free. In Arknights, you have practice mode for the main story fights for if you think you can do a better run with different units, a roguelike mode with infinite replayability. In fact, many other games are using roguelike as a side game mode for fun. Then we have Genshin. This is a full-fledged game with gacha game elements. You can roam around, get lost in the world for days without even worrying about current events or emptying your stamina. This is a game first and foremost, before it is a live service experience designed to siphon money out from its players. Like it or not, gacha is here to stay, but that doesn't mean the player will only find suffering when it comes to playing these games. The core of the issue will probably never be addressed, as it is the golden goose that keeps giving, but if game companies are still able to create quality through it, then I suppose I'm willing to overlook them. However, if I do have to interject in some way to someone looking from the outside, I couldn't really recommend them, unless I can properly diagnose each individual on what they are looking for in these games. In closing, I see gacha games as long, single-player games with a very active online community. However, you'll be hard-pressed to find the absolute pinnacle of game genres in gacha games, whether it be open world, hack and slash combat, or even tower defense. But for a free game, they are absolutely good enough to hold you over, as the standard of gacha game designs raises over time. With that said, these games are only worth if you can get your fun out of them without spending any money, in which case I can make a whole video series on using examples we see in these games. But just know, I would only truly recommend gacha games to someone who 1. Does not have the ability to make payments online, and 2. Are completely immune to FOMO tactics employed by these companies. I'm just systematically justifying my Stockholm Syndrome. So here we are back again. A shaky mess of a journey to say the least, but I just want to lay out my experience on screen so people can judge them fairly by themselves on what happened. I think there are many unique things about this corner of the gaming industry that I think is worth exploring, no matter what it eventually becomes. I could go into detail about my psychology at individual parts on this. I don't necessarily think this is the best direction for the gaming industry in general to take, nor do I think this is the definitive point in where gaming as a whole dies. But this video is long enough, and those topics can be entire videos on their own. As I said in the beginning, this is one of many experiences one can have from this. But that's where you people come in and share your own experience with gacha games. Because at the end of the day, it's the people that made gacha games.